Hey everyone, and welcome. If you've ever heard of Microsoft Access and kind of scratched your head wondering what it is or why on earth you'd use it instead of, say, Excel, then you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this powerhouse tool piece by piece. So let's dive right in. First things first, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a spreadsheet that just got out of control? You're tracking customers, you're tracking orders, maybe products, all in one giant file, and it's just starting to slow down and creak under the weight. It's a super common problem, and it's the exact reason a tool like Access even exists. You see, spreadsheets are amazing for number crunching and simple lists, but they weren't really built to handle lots of complex, related information. And that's where a whole different beast comes into play, a database management system, or DBMS for short. Its job isn't just to hold data, it's to organize it, connect it, and let you ask some seriously powerful questions. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with what Access really is. Then we'll look at the heart of the database, where your data actually lives. From there, we'll figure out how to ask questions of that data, build friendly ways to work with it, and finally present and automate the whole shebang. Each step builds on the last, so you'll have the full picture by the end. Let's do it! All right, first up, what is Microsoft Access really? Let's nail down a solid definition so we're all on the same page. At its absolute core, Microsoft Access is a database management system, and the keyword there is system. Don't think of it as just a file, like an Excel workbook. Think of it more like a complete toolkit for your information. It's like getting a digital filing cabinet, the blueprints to build it, and a super smart librarian to manage it, all in one convenient package. And inside that toolkit, you've basically got 5 main building blocks. In Access, they call these objects. They are tables, queries, forms, reports, and macros. Pretty much everything you do in Access is about creating and combining these 5 things. So where do we start building? Well, you always start with the foundation, right? Let's talk about the absolute heart of any database, the place where all your data actually lives. And that place is called a table. Now, if you've used a spreadsheet, this grid of rows and columns is going to look really familiar. But here's the huge difference. In Access, tables are very, very structured. You can't just type whatever you want, wherever you want. And that structure is what gives you the superpower to create connections between different tables, something a single spreadsheet just can't do. Okay, to really speak the language of databases, there are 2 key terms we need to get down. What you might call a column in a spreadsheet, well, in Access, we call that a field. It holds one specific type of info, like a first name. And a row is called a record. That's one complete entry, like all the information for a single customer. But how does the database tell one customer from another, especially if you have 2 people with the exact same name, like John Smith? It uses something called a primary key. Just think of it like a unique ID number for every single record. Its one and only job is to guarantee that no 2 records can ever be identical. This is the secret sauce that lets us connect all our data together reliably. And that structure goes even deeper. In Access, every single field has to have a specific data type. A name might be short text, but some detailed notes would be long text. This isn't just about being tidy, it's about protecting your data. It stops someone from accidentally typing a phone number into a date field, which keeps everything consistent and trustworthy. Okay, so we've got all our data stored neatly in these structured tables. Now for the really fun part. How do we find the needle in the data haystack? How do we pull out the specific answers we're looking for? We do that with a query. A query is exactly what it sounds like. It's a question you ask your database. But these aren't simple questions. We're talking questions like, show me every customer from Texas who bought product X in the last 90 days and spent more than $50. The query then dives through all your tables and brings back just the answer you need. It's how you turn that mountain of data into actual insight. The process really is that simple. You start with a question you need answered, you use the tools and Access to build a query that represents that question, and boom, the database gives you back precisely the data you asked for. No more endless scrolling and manual filtering. And get this, queries can do more than just show you data. There's a special type called an action query that can actually change your data in bulk. An update query can change thousands of records at once, an append query can copy records from one table to another, and a delete query can, you guessed it, permanently remove records. So yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, and these things are incredibly powerful. All right, we can store data and we can ask it questions. But let's be honest, who wants to stare at raw grids of data all day long?
For this system to be truly useful for everyday people, we need a friendly human way to interact with it.
I absolutely love this saying. Data grids are for computers, but forms are for people. Instead of forcing someone to type directly into a table, which can be pretty risky, we can build a much safer, much more intuitive interface for them to use. And that interface is called a form. It's basically a user-friendly screen that sits right on top of your tables. So instead of typing into a confusing grid, you're just filling out what looks like a familiar web page or a paper form. You can add buttons, drop-down menus, helpful instructions. You can guide the user, prevent mistakes, and make sure the data going into your database is always clean and correct.
Okay, we can store data, query it, and enter it easily. Now we're on the home stretch. Let's look at the final pieces of the puzzle: how to get polished information out of the database, and how to automate all the boring, repetitive tasks. And this brings us to a really simple but critical idea. If forms are for putting data in, then reports are for getting data out. It's that simple. A form is interactive. You click and type in it. A report is for presentation. It's designed to format your data perfectly for printing, for saving as a PDF, or just for looking at a professional summary on screen.
Finally, what about all those little tasks you do over and over again every single day? That's where macros come in. Just think of a macro as a saved list of instructions. You could create a button on a form that says Run Monthly Report, and when you click it, it runs a query, generates a report from that query, and then emails it as a PDF to your boss, all automatically. It lets you automate these complex workflows with a single click, and you don't have to write a single line of code. Which brings us all the way back to our original question. After seeing all these different pieces, the tables, queries, forms, reports, and macros, and how they all fit together, is Access just a more complicated version of Excel? And the answer is a clear, resounding no. It's a totally different kind of tool. It's not just a grid for numbers. It's a complete system designed to take raw, messy, disconnected data and turn it into structured, reliable, and genuinely actionable information. And that's the real magic of a tool like this. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Think about your own data. Your work data, data from a hobby, a personal project. What incredible questions could you finally answer if all of that information was perfectly organized and connected? Thanks so much for watching.